What's up, everybody? The Iceman here, and I apologize because I have a very congested chest tonight. I've been like this for a while. If you see me on Facebook, you know. But anyway, this video is a little bit about my favorite tag team of all time. And there's been a number of great tag teams throughout the years. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of them. And most recently, the Uso brothers. I think the Uso brothers have been a great tag team. Um, you know, in the WWE the last couple years. They're fun to watch. They're entertaining, and they do have a lot of ability in the ring. And for me, they remind me of a team that is my favorite, which I'll get to at the end of this video. But I do love the Uso brothers. I think they were just totally awesome. Now, with all that being said, um, there's been a lot of tag teams throughout the years that have been really super in the WWE, TNA, WCW, NWA, however you want to look at it. Edge and Christian in the WWF um, were, once they broke away from Gangrel and they made a mark on themselves, they were like a great tag team. Very comedic. Edge and Christian really just put on a good show, and they were really super fun to watch. But also in the ring, they were also very great. And and if it wasn't for the likes of the Dudley Boys, who are the 23-time World Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, this probably would not have happened. Which the Dudley Boys is another great tag team, and you cannot count them out. Um, but for me, they were like a distance in the past. Um, the Hardy Boys, though, Jeff and Matt Hardy, when they first came out, I thought Matt Hardy was like the leader of the two, but Jeff Hardy just like really took it to everybody, and he proved that he was the guy. And the Hardy Boys, just to this day, still are one of the greatest tag teams of all times. Now, I'm not saying they're not great. I'm just saying they're not my favorite. We can look back even a little further. Uh, you know, the New Age Outlaws were a great tag team. Um, Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg, I love them. I thought they were superb. They were fun to watch. They had their time. They had their era. Um, but again, it was what it was. I mean, I like them for what they did, but I go back even further, you know, even further. The Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs were two of the most devastating tag teams back when they were around. Obviously, Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. Those two guys there were like devastating, and that was a great feud way back when the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs were around, and it was a time when it was fun to watch. It was a time when we needed something like this, other than the distraction of the WWF title, which at the time back then was the most important thing in the world of professional wrestling because really at that point WCW really hadn't had anything on TV to really press anything until like 1995. But but anyhow, they were good tag teams, but they still weren't for me the best. And I can wind back a little bit further, and I'm going to wind back a little further even more. Does anybody remember that Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo were, I believe they were the Patriots with Lou Albano, that they were a very popular tag team at the time. And if I'm not mistaken, they feuded with the likes of two, in my eyes, were the greatest tag teams of all time was Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito. I think the two Japanese wrestlers were like awesome in my eyes. I thought they were great. At that time, I'll be honest with you, I thought there was no way, no how, because I was a lot younger back then, that nobody was going to beat these guys. But in 1979, I went to a house show at the Hartford Civic Center, and Tony Garea and no, excuse me, Tito Santana and Tony Garea teamed up, and they faced Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito. They did not win the tag team titles, but they were eventual tag team title winners. Because I like Garea and I like Santana. I thought they made a great matchup. They were fun to watch as well. But Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito were like something that you need to reckon with. They were one of my favorites of all times. But then I turned the clock back. I don't know if I turn the clock back or I turn it ahead, but the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, to me, had the best feud ever in the world of tag team wrestling. And I mean, Jim Cornette orchestrated a great duo, and the Rock and Roll Express, obviously, if you can go back and look in the history or even watch videos, excuse me, of the Rock and Roll Express, you will see how popular they really were. And this feud to me was somewhat of the best I ever saw in the world of professional wrestling. And I don't think I've ever seen anything better than that today. People may talk about demolition or whatnot, or the mega powers with Hogan and Savage. There's a lot of other things. The Barbarian and the Warlord, Tugboat and Earthquake. I mean, there's so many other tag teams out there. But to me, my favorite tag team of all time was the Rock and Roll Express. And the reason why I really love the Rock and Roll Express, because it was many years ago, for one thing. But many years ago, I was many years ago younger, and I loved their music. I loved their theme. I loved their athleticism. I loved their demeanor in the ring. I loved just their popularity. I just thought, to me, that they honestly were really the most popular tag team at that time in that era. And, a lot of other people, I didn't mention the Road Warriors. I love the Road Warriors, don't get me wrong. But the Rock and Roll Express just had so much energy in them. Even when they wrestled like the Fantastics and whatnot, and but they had so much energy. But their feud with the Midnight Express was so phenomenal. And now other people are going to say, well, what about the Midnight Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels? No, I did like them, don't get me wrong. But the Rock and Roll Express was what was before the Rockers of Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. I think those guys sort of like, took off what Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson had at the Rock and Roll Express. So, yeah, they were fun times, and a lot of you younger people out there, if check it out. Check out Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express. Check out those days. Even check out the days of Paul Jones with Baron von Raschke. Stuff like that. I mean, those are the things. This was like this. What's what made wrestling what it was. And when it was territorial, wrestling was really at its best. And now that it's like worldwide, and when now everybody thought it was going to be a bigger and better thing, um, it was to some point when we saw WCW and WWE go to head. But once everything, sort of like dissolved, if WWE really had a straight mind of themselves when Shawn or Shane took over WCW on that simulcast night, WWE should have been smart and said, "Hey, we'll keep WCW open. Shane runs it. We got all these stars over there. We got all these stars over here in WWE. We can really make some wicked, great moments." And even with Stephanie supposedly running ECW, we could have had some really good times, but Vince decided not to do that. But anyway, all that being said, Rock and Roll Express. If you never saw them, do a search on YouTube. Check them out. What a great tag team they were. Peace out, everybody. Have yourself a great Saturday night.